There is a very specific, very modern paralysis known as approach anxiety. It is the sudden, irrational terror that floods your system when you need to walk 10 paces across a crowded room to speak to a stranger you find attractive. Consider Samwise Gamgee at the start of The Lord of the Rings. When we first meet him, he is staring longingly at Rosie Cotton. He is completely paralyzed, lacking the basic courage to strike up a simple conversation. Then the narrative takes a detour. Sam leaves the comfort of the Shire. He suffers starvation, fights off the giant spider Shelob in single combat, carries his dying friend up the slopes of an active volcano, and faces death on a daily basis. By the time he returns home and sees Rosie again, his hesitation is gone. He walks right up to her. After fighting in a literal war, he realizes that a potential romantic rejection is trivial. Surviving extreme physical danger permanently recalibrates what a person perceives as scary. In contemporary life, we have systematically engineered physical danger out of our daily routines. We rarely face survival stakes, predators, or extreme physical trials. When actual survival is guaranteed, the brain still looks for threats. Without giant spiders to fight, minor social interactions artificially inflate to fill the vacuum, becoming the psychological peak of our daily danger. We try to build entirely comfortable, safe lives to avoid stress, yet avoiding all physical and mental friction is exactly what maximizes our social and romantic anxieties. How do we fix this? How can an individual deliberately engineer their own psychology so that social courage becomes an automatic reflex? To answer that, we have to look at a classic psychological study conducted in Vancouver, Canada, testing the link between environmental fear and romantic pursuit. The researchers set up their first test condition on an old, rickety suspension bridge. It swayed violently in the wind, suspended high over a deep, rocky canyon. For their second test condition, they used a control environment. This was a sturdy, modern, entirely safe bridge built further up the same river. The researchers placed an attractive female researcher in the middle of each bridge. Her job was to stop solitary men as they crossed and ask them to complete a standard personality test. The personality test was a decoy. The researchers were quietly tracking a single hidden variable. How many of these men would muster the courage to call the researcher and ask her out after the interaction was over? The environment itself, the presence of mortal danger on the rickety bridge versus the absolute safety of the solid bridge, was the mechanism being used to observe shifts in the men's baseline courage. The results showed men on the terrifying bridge were 4 times more likely to call the researcher than men on the safe bridge. Psychologists call this misattribution of arousal. The brain confuses survival adrenaline, like a racing heart, with romantic attraction. This triggers a behavioral effect called risk spillover. Executing one highly risky action dramatically lowers the mental friction required to execute another immediately afterward. As the psychologist Dr. Orion Taraban explains it, it's like doing the dishes. Your hands are already wet, so what's one more plate? Surviving circumstantial danger triggers a temporary surge of adrenaline that simplifies your internal priorities. It creates a window where the physical momentum of staying alive makes the social cost of an introduction seem insignificant. We don't all have access to a terrifying suspension bridge over a canyon. We have to apply the science to the metaphorical obstacles in our own daily routines. Courage is not a genetic trait you draw in a lottery at birth. It is a biological habit. It must be actively cultivated through repeated, voluntary exposure to discomfort. To cure approach anxiety, you have to look away from dating altogether. You must turn directly toward the non-romantic challenges you are currently avoiding in your life. The only permanent psychological cure for cowardice is systematically raising the overall difficulty baseline of your daily existence. First, you push yourself physically. This means adopting a rigorous fitness routine, actively trying to run faster, or systematically lifting heavier weights. Second, you push yourself professionally. You set aggressive financial goals, volunteer for the difficult promotion, or take on the immense risk of starting your own business. Third, you push yourself emotionally. This requires radical self-honesty to confront your own deep-seated resentments, apologies you owe, and self-limiting beliefs. By consistently working through these physical, professional, and emotional hurdles, your brain resets its baseline for what constitutes a threat. Walking across a room to say hello to a woman pales in comparison to the friction you've already conquered before lunch. When you systematically tackle terrifying things in your daily life, asking someone out ceases to be a monumental threat. It becomes exactly what it is, just another minor, exciting challenge on the mountain